In 1974, a 28-year-old country singer got a phone call the night before the biggest recording session of her life. Elvis Presley was booked to record one of her songs. His producer had already invited her to the studio. Elvis wanted to meet her. The man on the phone was Presley's manager, and he explained the arrangement. Elvis did not record anything unless their side took half the publishing. She said no. She hung up, and she cried all night, and the session never happened. Almost everything you know about Dolly Parton comes from that decision, and from about 40 more like it. She died on the 25th of August, 2026, at 80 years old. This is the whole story. Let's do an icon recall. If this is your first time here, we look at the icons everyone celebrates and ask what it actually cost them to become that. Hit like if that's the kind of story you're here for, and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Dolly Rebecca Parton was born on the 19th of January, 1946, in a one-room cabin on the banks of the Little Pigeon River in Sevier County, Tennessee. Her father paid the doctor who delivered her with a sack of cornmeal. She told that story for the rest of her life. And it was true. She was the fourth of 12 children. Her mother, Avie Lee, had 11 pregnancies in 20 years and was the mother of 12 by the age of 35. The family grew up in the mountains above Locust Ridge, with no running water and no electricity. Her father, Robert Lee Parton, worked first as a sharecropper and later on his own small tobacco patch, taking construction work to fill the gap. He never learned to read or write. Hold on to that. It comes back in about 20 minutes, and it turns out to be the most consequential fact in this entire video. Her grandfather pastored a Church of God congregation, and her first performances were there from about the age of 6. At 7, she was playing a guitar somebody had made her. At 8, her uncle bought her a real one. By 10, she was working. Her uncle Bill Owens got her onto the Cass Walker Show, which ran on both WIVK radio and WBIR television in Knoxville, by getting her backstage and letting her walk up to Walker herself and tell him she wanted a job. It worked. She was a professional performer in the 5th grade. At 13, she rode a bus to Lake Charles, Louisiana to cut her first single for a small label called Gold Band. The song was Puppy Love, which she had written with her uncle at 11. She remembered the smell of the bus better than the record. Diesel, vinyl seats, and people who were going somewhere. The single went nowhere. That same year, she made her debut at the Grand Ole Opry, 13 years old, standing on the most important stage in country music. Johnny Cash was there, and he told her to follow her own instincts rather than anyone else's advice. She took that literally for the next 67 years. She graduated from Sevier County High School in 1964. She left for Nashville the following day. And here is the part most retellings skip. She did not arrive as a singer. Her first success in Nashville was as a writer. She signed with Combine Publishing almost immediately, and working with her uncle Bill Owens, she put songs on the chart for other artists, including 2 top 10 hits for a singer named Bill Phillips. She was 18 years old and she was already in the songwriting business, which means she already understood that the song and the singer are 2 different assets, and that only one of them pays forever. On her first day in the city, she went looking for somewhere to wash her clothes. A man drove past the wishy-washy laundromat, slowed down and said something to her about getting sunburned standing out there. She said something smart back. They talked. Years afterward, describing that conversation, the detail she kept returning to was not anything he said. It was that while he talked to her, he looked at her face. She noted that this was a rare thing for her. His name was Carl Dean. He was 21, he worked in asphalt, and he had no interest whatsoever in the music business. They married on the 30th of May, 1966, in a small ceremony in Ringgold, Georgia. To understand why the face thing mattered, you have to understand the decision she had already made about how she was going to look. As a girl, she had seen a woman in her hometown that the local people called trash, and she had thought that woman was the most beautiful thing she had ever seen. The hair, the makeup, the heels. She decided that was glamour, and she never revised it. That decision worked, and it also meant that for the next 6 decades, almost everyone who met her looked at her body first. She talked about it constantly, always as a joke, because she made almost everything a joke. The jokes were armor, and she said so. So when she told the laundromat story and chose to emphasize where his eyes went, she was not being sentimental. She was telling you the basis of a marriage that lasted 58 years. He almost never appeared in public with her again. He did not attend the award shows. He gave no interviews. Photographs of him across the entire marriage number in the low dozens. She said he came to one industry event with her, the BMI Awards in 1967, and that she had to beg him to go. He ran an asphalt paving company, he liked the RV, and she called him a homebody as a compliment. In 1967, Porter Wagoner was one of the biggest names in country music, with a syndicated television show carrying his name into millions of American homes every week. He had lost his female singer and needed a replacement. He heard a record called Dumb Blonde and offered the job to the woman who sang it. She was 21. Overnight, she went from a working songwriter to a face on national television every week, touring with his band, recording duet albums under both their names. He gave her the career. She never once disputed that, and she said so publicly for the next 59 years. She had also promised him 5 years. She stayed 7. By the early 1970s, she wanted things he could not give her. She wanted bigger management and films and an audience that had never bought a country record in its life. He did not want to hear any of it, and he told her that RCA would drop her the moment she left his show. So she flew to New York on her own without telling him and made appointments with the executives at RCA. She told them she was going solo, that she wanted pop producers, that she intended to bridge the gap out of country music. They backed her completely. Then she went home and did the only thing she reliably knew how to do. She put the whole argument into 3 verses. She walked into his office, told him to sit down, and played it to him. He cried. Then he told her she could go on the condition that he produced the record because it was the best song she had ever written. The song was I Will Always Love You. It topped the country chart. It did not end cleanly. In 1979, Wagoner sued her for $3 million, alleging breach of contract and claiming that as her former manager, he was still owed a share of what she earned. It settled out of court. They repaired it over the following decades. In 2007, at his 50th anniversary as an Opry member, she stood on that stage and sang the song to him. He died later that year. Which brings us back to the phone call. In the same year the song went to #1, Elvis Presley decided he wanted to record it. His producer rang and invited her to the session and told her that Elvis wanted to meet her. She has described being out of her mind with excitement, telling everybody she knew that Elvis was going to sing her song. The night before the session, Colonel Tom Parker telephoned her and explained the rule. Elvis did not record anything unless their side took at least half of the publishing. Consider the position she was in. She was 28. She had left the show that made her 3 months earlier. Her former boss was telling anyone who would listen that she was finished, and the most famous entertainer on the planet wanted her song. Her reasoning, which she repeated almost word for word for the next 50 years, was that the song had already been a hit, that she had written it and published it herself, and that it was what she intended to leave to her family. She called it the most important copyright in her entire publishing company. She said no. Parker told her that in that case they could not record it. They did not. She said she cried all night and that it was one of the hardest things she ever had to do because she loved Elvis. 18 years later, Whitney Houston recorded it for a film soundtrack, and it became one of the best-selling singles in the history of recorded music. Every cent of the songwriting and publishing income from that came back to the woman who had told Colonel Parker no. She joked later that the decision eventually brought her enough money to buy Graceland. There is a postscript she only told decades afterward. She spoke to Priscilla Presley, who told her that when she and Elvis walked down the courthouse steps after their divorce, he was singing that song to her. So Elvis did sing it to the person it mattered to. He simply never owned any of it. 3 years later, she made the move that country music had been waiting to punish her for. Here You Come Again was a pop record. She did not write it. Barry Mann and Cynthia Weil did, and they had originally written it as a comeback vehicle for Brenda Lee, who passed on it. Her new Los Angeles producer Gary Klein found it on a B.J. Thomas album. She knew it was a hit the moment she heard it. She also knew there was not a trace of country anywhere in the arrangement, and that Nashville would say she had gone Hollywood. So she had them overdub a pedal steel guitar onto it. She brought in a player called Al Perkins for the sole purpose of putting steel on a pop record, and she insisted it be audible in the final mix. Klein explained exactly why. She wanted people to be able to hear the steel guitar so that if anybody said the record was not country, she could say that it was, and prove it. He said she was so relieved that it was like her life sentence had been commuted. That is the whole Dolly Parton method in one production decision. She was not asking permission to cross over. She was building the defense before the accusation arrived. And she was blunt about why she did it. She said she had been as popular as anybody could be in country music, but she was only selling about 200,000 albums because there is only a certain number of people who buy country records. The record held the top of the country chart for 5 weeks and reached number 3 on the Hot 100. It became her first gold single and the title track of her first million-selling album. Both the Academy of Country Music and the Country Music Association named her Entertainer of the Year anyway. Her own summary of the whole affair was that the song was so good a monkey could have made it a hit, and that you were looking at $1 million monkey. 3 years after that, Jane Fonda offered her a part in a film. The picture was 9 to 5, about 3 women taking revenge on a sexist boss, and it was Parton's acting debut. She agreed to do it on one condition. She wanted to write the theme song. She did not bring her guitar to set because she was trying to stay in character, so she wrote it on her fingernails. She ran her long acrylic nails against each other and found she could make a sound like a typewriter, and she built the rhythm of the song out of that. When they recorded it, her producer wanted to reproduce the sound with an actual typewriter. They used her nails instead and layered them into the finished single. The album credits read, in full, "Nails by Dolly." The song topped the country chart, then the Hot 100, making her only the second woman in history to lead both with the same single. The first had been Jeannie C. Riley with Harper Valley PTA, a song Parton had covered in 1969. It won 2 Grammys and was nominated for the Academy Award for Best Original Song. It lost to Fame. In September 1983, she announced that she was going to build a theme park in Sevier County. She described it as a fantasy mountain park to be finished in 3 to 5 years. Within days, the name was public. Her stated reason never changed. Across 40 years of being asked, she said she had always thought that if she made it big, she wanted to come back to her part of the country and do something that would bring a lot of jobs into the area. There was already a park on the site. It had opened in 1961 as a frontier attraction with staged train robberies, and by the late 70s it was Silver Dollar City, Tennessee, run by the Hershent family. In 1985, she entered negotiations that turned into a partnership with the Hershents, and because the scale of it required new roads and services, the city of Pigeon Forge came into the deal too. The first phase was a $5 million expansion. At the groundbreaking, officials predicted the project would create 150 permanent jobs. The renamed park opened on the 3rd of May, 1986. Attendance more than doubled in the first season. Roughly 1 million people came through the gates that year. The park is now the largest ticketed attraction in Tennessee and the largest single provider of jobs in Sevier County. A Tennessee Department of Transportation study in 2021 put its annual economic impact on the state at $1.8 billion. And the thing it did to the town around it is arguably larger than the thing it did for her. Pigeon Forge had been a place people drove through on the way to the Smokies. After 1986, it was a destination. The design of it matters too. She did not build a generic amusement park with her name on it. She built one full of Appalachian craft demonstrations, a working grist mill, mountain music, and a theater where her own relatives performed. She took the culture that people had spent her whole childhood calling backward and charged admission to it. In 1987, she made a record that had been trying to happen for a decade. Parton, Linda Ronstadt, and Emmylou Harris had been attempting to record together since the 70s and had been blocked every time by contracts and schedules. The window finally opened in 1986. Trio went platinum, put a single at the top of the country chart, won a Grammy, took the Academy of Country Music's Album Prize, and was nominated for the All-Genre Album of the Year. Against a decade of glossy Los Angeles production, it was 3 voices and almost nothing else. Then she made Steel Magnolias in 1989, and then, for most of the 90s, she largely stopped. She rarely performed live. She published a memoir in 1994. She made records with her contemporaries, including Honky Tonk Angels with Loretta Lynn and Tammy Wynette in 1993. Country radio, meanwhile, had moved to a younger format and simply stopped playing her. And then in early 1999, Decca closed its Nashville office. She had been dropped once already that year. At 53 years old, one of the most successful recording artists in American history had no record label at all. What she did next is the most underrated decision of her career. She did not chase the format that had abandoned her. She went to an independent bluegrass label called Sugar Hill and made a record of the music she had grown up hearing in the mountains. She assembled a band of the best acoustic players alive: Jerry Douglas, Sam Bush, Stuart Duncan, with Alison Krauss and Rhonda Vincent singing behind her. The Grass is Blue won the Grammy for Best Bluegrass Album and was named Album of the Year by the International Bluegrass Music Association. She followed it with Little Sparrow in 2001 and Halos and Horns in 2002. Her own line about it was that she had to get rich so she could sing like she was poor. That same year, Trio 2 finally came out 5 years after it was recorded, and their version of Neil Young's After the Gold Rush won another Grammy. In 2007, she started her own record label. She was never signed to anybody else again. Now we go back to her father. Robert Lee Parton could not read or write. He had left school young and never learned. His daughter said repeatedly that he was one of the smartest people she ever knew, particularly about business and money, and that his inability to read almost certainly kept him from everything he might have been. In 1995, she started mailing books to children. The Imagination Library began as a local program for the preschool children of Sevier County. One book a month, free, posted to the child's own address, from birth until they turn 5, regardless of what the family earns. The point was that the child does not have to travel to the library, and the book does not have to go back. She said her father told her, before he died, that the Imagination Library was probably the most important work of her life. It reached its 100 millionth book in 2018 at a ceremony in the Great Hall of the Library of Congress. By the time she died, it had sent more than 300 million books into 5 countries, reaching over 3 million children every month. In the United States, roughly 1 in 7 children under the age of 5 now gets a book in the post because of a decision she made about her father. The other thing worth knowing about her giving is that the most famous instance of it happened almost by accident. In 2013, she was in a car accident. It left her with minor injuries, but it sent her to Vanderbilt University Medical Center, where she came to know a surgeon there named Naji Aboumrad. 7 years later, in the spring of 2020, Aboumrad told her what the university was working on with a pharmaceutical company called Moderna. She gave $1 million to the research fund. Vanderbilt later confirmed that her money funded stages of that work, which one of the researchers described as critical. When she was eventually vaccinated with the Moderna shot herself, she sang the word vaccine to the tune of Jolene. It was not her first gift there, and not her last. She had already given $1 million to the Children's Hospital at Vanderbilt in honor of a niece treated for leukemia. In 2022, she gave another $1 million for pediatric infectious disease research. If you are getting something out of this, subscribing genuinely helps. In February 2022, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame put her on the ballot. 5 weeks later, she published an open letter asking to be taken off it. She wrote that she was flattered and grateful, but that she did not feel she had earned the right, and that she did not want votes split because of her. Nobody had ever done that before. Van Morrison, David Bowie, and the Sex Pistols had all made their contempt for the institution clear, but none of them had actually asked to be removed from consideration. The Hall refused. They pointed out that ballots had already gone to voters, and they argued that rock and roll had always had deep roots in rhythm and blues and country music. She was voted in on her first year of eligibility, alongside Eminem, Duran Duran, Eurythmics, Pat Benatar, Lionel Richie, and Carly Simon. She said she would accept gracefully. Then she went and did something about it. Having decided that she had not earned the honor, she set out to earn it retroactively at 77 years old by making an actual rock record. Rockstar ran to 30 tracks and well over 2 hours, with Paul McCartney, Elton John, Stevie Nicks, Steven Tyler, Debbie Harry, John Fogerty, and Peter Frampton on it. And in the withdrawal letter itself, back in March 2022, there is one line that most of the coverage missed. Explaining where the idea for a rock album had come from, she wrote that her husband had always encouraged her to make one. When she was asked how she chose the material, she said she picked most of it because of Carl, because he knew good music. A woman with one of the largest song catalogs in American history, choosing her material on the taste of a retired asphalt contractor who had never wanted to be in a photograph. At the induction ceremony, she stood on stage and said she was a rock star now. On the 3rd of March, 2025, Carl Dean died in Nashville. He was 82. The announcement came as a 4-sentence statement on her social media accounts. It said he would be laid to rest in a private ceremony with immediate family, and that he was survived by his siblings Sandra and Donnie. No cause of death was given. The family asked for privacy. Her own line in it was that they had spent many wonderful years together and that words could not do justice to the love they had shared for over 60 years. 3 days later, she posted again to thank people for the flowers and the cards. She wrote that he was in God's arms now and that she was okay with that. Then she signed it with the title of the song she had refused to sell to Elvis Presley. 4 days after he died, she released a new one. It is called If You Hadn't Been There, and the central line is that she would not be here if he had not been there. Posting it, she wrote that she had fallen in love with Carl Dean when she was 18, that like all great love stories, theirs would live on in memory and song, and that he was the star of her life story. She had written roughly 3,000 songs. She wrote that one in the week her husband died. What follows has to be handled carefully, because it is easy to turn it into a story it is not. In September 2025, she pulled out of a Dollywood appearance with a kidney stone that had caused an infection. Later that month, she postponed a 6-night Las Vegas residency, her first run of dates since 2016, from December to the following September. She said her doctors had told her she needed a few procedures and joked that it was time for her 100,000-mile checkup and that it was not the usual trip to the plastic surgeon. In October, her younger sister asked people to pray for her on Facebook, and the internet decided she was dying. She filmed a video to stop it, opening by asking whether she looked sick. Then she said the thing that is the closest anyone has to an explanation. She said that back when her husband Carl was very sick, and that it had gone on a long time, and that when he passed, she did not take care of herself. She said she let a lot of things go that she should have been taken care of. She kept working anyway. Across those same months, she announced a museum and a hotel in Nashville, a new Dollywood attraction, a pirate dinner show, and a stage musical of her own life due to open at the end of 2026, which she was rewriting from home while the doctors worked on her. In May 2026, she canceled Las Vegas outright rather than move it again. She said her immune system and her digestive system had been out of order for a couple of years and that the medication left her, in her words, swimmy-headed. She compared herself to a classic car that still had its shine and needed the engine rebuilt. On the 14th of August, she could not attend the opening of a new attraction at her own park. She said her Nashville doctors had clipped her wings. A week later, she told people that she had been having hard times with her health, and that these were things she had not been able to deal with before Carl died. On the 25th of August, 2026, Dolly Parton died at her home in Nashville. She was 80 years old. Her publicist announced it. Her family said she died peacefully. A small private service was planned. No cause of death was released. The same 4 things in the same order that were said about her husband 17 months earlier. There is a temptation to draw a straight line between the 2 deaths and call it a broken heart. And she gave us the material for it herself. That line is not available. Nobody released a cause of death for either of them. What exists on the record is a woman who said on camera that she stopped looking after herself while her husband was dying and did not start again afterward. That is not a love story ending. It is just what she said happened. What is left is the catalog, and the catalog is the point. Roughly 3,000 songs, 11 Grammys, a theme park that is the largest employer in the county she was born poor in. A song she refused to give half of to Elvis Presley, which went on to become one of the best-selling records ever made, every cent of it hers. And 300 million books, mailed one at a time to children who did not ask for them because of a man in East Tennessee who never learned to read. Her father was paid in cornmeal for a doctor and could not sign his own name. His daughter owned every word she ever wrote, and she spent the money teaching other people's children to read. If this changed how you see her, let me know in the comments. And if there's another icon you want remembered this way, not just for what they achieved, but for what it cost them, drop their name below. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. This is Recall Icon. Thank you for watching.